Hello everyone, welcome to all of you on my YouTube channel, Saurabh Goswami, History Optional for UPSC. And today we are going to discuss the theme, the historiographical perspective of the subtopic Dutch presence in India. So this lecture is related to paper 2 of History Optional. From paper 2, the theme is related to section 1, that is modern Indian history, and here we are discussing chapter 1, and the entire lecture series is free and it is based on chapter wise, topic and subtopic wise module. So previously, okay, this subtopic is the part of a main theme or chapter, that is European penetration in India or advent of Europeans in India. And previously I have discussed the very basic facts and informations about the topic Dutch presence in India in lecture number 7. Then in part B of this lecture I have discussed about the important conflicts, nature of conflicts, imperialism of the same topic, Dutch rise and fall. And today we are going to discuss part C of this theme, that is the historiographical perspective of the topic Dutch presence in India. And in this subtopic we will take one more lecture in the very next class, and that will be the PYQ insights. So today this is lecture number 9. So previously I have already discussed the theme with you. So in this lecture 9 we have to discuss only historiographical perspective of the topic. Now, in the previous subtopic, that was Portuguese presence in India, I have discussed some historiographical perspectives. So here the schools of historiography will be the same. Whenever we will evaluate any topic with the historiographical perspective, we will try to explore the colonial school of historiography, nationalist school of historiography, Marxist interpretation, Cambridge school of historiography, subaltern school of historiography. Okay, so there are a few branches which are important. So here we are going to do the chapter on the same format. So the first group or first school of historiography here is colonial school of historiography. Colonial school of historiography. I have already discussed the basic information of this colonial school of historiography. Whenever we talk about the colonial school of historiography, we are talking about the writings of the European historians or the British and British historians, also other European historians also, who wrote during the phase of imperialism and colonialism, and they tried to justify or validate the moral presence of colonial rule in Asia and Africa, or you can say that they tried to provide some intellectual support for these exploitative tendencies like the colonialism and imperialism. So here, when we look at this topic, Dutch presence in India from the historiographical perspective, especially colonial school of historiography. So Dutch are European groups. We know that Portuguese marked the beginning of arrival of European groups in India, and then Dutch came. So Dutch is a European group. So what the colonial historians will do, they will try to justify the capability of the Dutch traders, merchants. So they will say that the Dutch in India were efficient. Look at the selection of the keywords. What these colonial writings are saying, that they were efficient commercial capitalists. They were efficient commercial capitalists. This is, you can say, derived from the writings of colonial historians. They look at the Dutch presence in Asia, Southeast Asia, India as efficient commercial capitalist. The second important point, they are also saying that the Dutch were having the military superiority, the Dutch were having military superiority. Obviously, they were having military superiority. They were commercial capitalists because the Dutch company VOC was the first joint venture company. They were efficient. Obviously, they were efficient. Okay. They were not completely state owned or controlled. So they were efficient. Okay. They were having military superiority because they fought with the Portuguese. And since this was the first JVC, so in one way or another, we can say that it was also one of the first disciplined corporate structure in the world. It was also one of the first disciplined corporate structure, one of the first disciplined corporate structure in the world. So all these are the good things. We are saying them efficient. We are talking about their disciplined corporate culture. We are talking about their military superiority. Okay. And the colonial historians are also saying that the Dutch were merchants first. The Dutch were the merchants first. And the second point, what they are saying that they became empire builders only when it was necessary. So they were merchant first and they became empire builders. They became empire builders only when it was necessary. It means they are saying that the Dutch don't have any colonial ambitions. They came to do trade and commerce only. You will find that the colonial historians, when they talk about English East India Company, they are having the same kind of opinion. They will say that British conquered India in a fit of absent mindedness. They never planned for this. But we all know that each and everything was planned. The Dutch control, because Dutch did not establish their Dutch were failed to build their empire in India, but they were successful in making Dutch empire in Indonesia. So obviously it was planned, but the colonial historians are saying that no, it was not planned. Okay, so they are saying that European commercial intrusion was taking place at that time. It was not only Dutch, all European groups were looking for new trade prospects and opportunities, and they were reaching to the new destinations, and it was all commercial need. It might be a possibility that you need some raw material, or if you have some manufactured goods or items. So if you want to sell it to a new market, you want to get new consumers, so obviously you will explore new areas. So colonial historians are saying that Dutch were doing the same. Okay, and they are also saying that they are doing the same. So there is nothing unusual in this. It was the demand of the time and Dutch were doing the same. So by these ideas, what can you derive? So you can easily derive that colonial historians are trying to give a intellectual moral support for the Dutch imperialism in India. And there are some limitations also. Okay, they are basically not overemphasizing on the exploitative trends of the presence of Europeans. So this is one part. Now, this is the approach of colonial school of historiography. Now, what the second school was nationalist school of historiography. The basics I have already discussed, that when we talk about nationalist school of historiography, we are talking about the branch of historiography or the writings of those historians or intellectuals who wrote during the time when our freedom movement was in progress, when our freedom struggle was in progress. Okay, and they are having some patriotic sentiments. Okay, and the objective of writing was also to present an anti-colonial picture or anti-imperialist ideology. So this was happening. So nationalist historians will say that there was a broader tendency that was seen 15th century onwards. It means at global level you will see a new tendency. And what is this new tendency? So the new tendency was different European groups, different European groups started reaching to the countries of Asia. Okay, it means the different European groups penetration started in Asia. Like when we talk in context of India, so Portuguese, then Dutch, then Danes, then English, sorry, then English, then Danes, then French. So this is the sequence. So unless historians are saying that when you look at the overall picture, you will say that Dutch, the coming of Dutch to India is also the part of this broader picture. And this event was guided by the structural crisis that took place in Europe at that time. It means there were some challenges in Europe, and these European groups, in order to find the solution of these challenges, they reached India. Okay, so this is the point. It means India was presenting a better prospect for peaceful trade. India was presenting a better prospect for surplus trade. Indian merchants were welcoming new trading groups. Okay, so there was no any obstruction. India was full of opportunities, and Dutch came here. But when Dutch came, what they did, this is very important. Dutch entered in a system that was peaceful, and what they are doing after entering into the system, they did what? They also tried to develop monopoly like the Portuguese. For example, Portuguese were developing monopoly by blue water policy, Carthage system, military superiority, religious intolerance policy. Now here the fight is between monopoly versus monopoly. Here Portuguese are also promoting monopoly, Dutch are also promoting monopoly. So this is the fight. The fight, monopoly versus monopoly. Why I am saying? Because Dutch also used what? Dutch also used monopoly contracts. They did what? They used monopoly contracts. It means they signed forceful contracts with the local players, and here you will see what? Use of coercion or force. So here we see again the same tendency which was previously followed by Dutch. So you cannot say that Dutch were on a civilizing mission. No, it is true that the main focus or priority of Dutch was commercial only. Okay, territorial ambitions or the objective to establish political control was not there. It is true. There is no any doubt that Dutch did not pursue any aggressive empire in India, and the reason was that they were more interested in Indonesia. Okay, and later you will see you can say an agreement like situation that English East India Company, British will say कि भाई हम कहाँ, we will focus on India and you should focus on the Indonesia. So this situation will come. So this is not a good thing. This is what? Again a part of this broader exploitative framework. Okay, when you talk in context of Indonesia, that are brutal, very much cruel. Okay, but in context of India, they appear to be liberal than Portuguese. Their Portuguese appear to be cruel. Okay, British are exploiting, but their system is very much structural in nature. The third important group of historiography is Marxist school of historiography. The basic I have already discussed in the previous classes, that Marxist school of historiography will have focus on mode of production, economic structures, okay, and social relations and economic structures. They will try to give a scientific interpretation of whatever was happening here. So when Marxists will look at this topic of Dutch presence in India, they have a different vision, and they visualize the Dutch presence in India as a part of early corporate capitalism. Early corporate capitalism. This is about Dutch presence in India. If you recall the previous lecture of historiography that is related to the Portuguese topic, I told you that the same Marxist school of historiography, when they talk about Portuguese, they say that that was the part of early mercantilistic capitalism. Here they are saying early corporate capitalism, and the reason is the Dutch company VOC was the first JVC, and they have one of the first disciplined corporate culture around the world. That's why it is called corporate capitalism. Okay, the selection of keywords is very much important while writing answer, and that you will learn with detailed discussions. And they are saying that when Dutch company or VOC will come to India, the Marxist interpretation is that they are also guided by the structural crisis that was seen in Europe, plus the Portuguese, okay, had already controlled all important routes in choke points here to do trade and commerce with Asia, and Dutch also want to do this. It means that the Boolean crisis was there, okay, and Dutch wanted to get more and more bullion by increasing their exports. They wanted to get or accumulate more and more capital by promoting their exports, and that's why they are in Asia. This is the reason. It means that Dutch also wanted to accumulate more and more capital, also want to accumulate more and more capital. They want to get surplus profit, they want to get economic gains, and at the end of this they are also having the intention to establish monopoly capitalism. It means they are guided by this idea of monopoly, okay, and that's why you will see the strict rivalries will be seen here. The naval conflicts with the Portuguese forces will be seen, and the picture is very clear. Like I have already discussed that Dutch are present in India. Coromandel coast is important for textile trade. Malabar coast is important for spices trade. The cloth textiles that are produced in Coromandel coast were high in demand in Southeast Asia. Now, what these Dutch merchants will do, they will get textiles from the Coromandel coast, and they needed spices, that spice island in Indonesia. So this exchange will be done in order to get more and more spices, and finally the spices were high in demand in Europe. So obviously they were trying to get control over the spice production. They are trying to get control over the important trading network that was a part of this spice trade. Okay, so we can say that the Dutch company, okay, was supported by the state, but it was a corporate. It was working more for the profit rather than the sovereignty in context of India. In case of Indonesia, they are fighting for the political control also, but here in India, they are working more for the profit, or they are guided to increase profit. This is the point. Okay, this is the idea of the Marxist with respect to the Dutch presence in India. Now, the next school of historiography is Cambridge School of Historiography. The basics of Cambridge School of Historiography I have already discussed with you. So, Cambridge School of Historiography will try to explore the collaboration that did this Dutch group or the VOC collaborated with the local rulers. Okay, so they will focus on the role of Indian agency. They will focus, their study will focus on the role of Indian politics. For example, if you will see here, okay, so you will find that when we talk about Dutch and when we talk about English, so Dutch main interest is what? Primarily commercial. It's not territorial. It's not territorial. So when dealing with the local rulers, they will interfere only when it is needed. And in most of the times, they will try to avoid conflict with the local rulers. Okay. Yes, there is a diplomatic part also, but this diplomacy will be used only in those cases where the Dutch had to fight with Portuguese, and those who are the sympathizers of Portuguese, Dutch will do what? Dutch will fight with these sympathizers. Many a times those who are hostile to the Portuguese, Dutch will make friends to this hostile group of Portuguese, and then this way they will try to defeat Portuguese. This is the main idea. It means that yes, diplomacy was there, but this diplomacy was not guided to annex more and more territory. This diplomacy was having a limited role, and this limited role was only to protect the commercial interest. It was not to build a territorial sovereignty. But in case of Britishers, the picture is completely different. British developed a good network and connection with the local Indian rulers, Indian elitist groups. Okay, just from the beginning, British focused on collaboration with the local Indian rulers and the Indian business groups. And here, Dutch did not focus on developing collaboration with the local rulers. Dutch did not focus. Here what we see, that Dutch did not focus on developing collaboration with the local rulers, or you can say that with the local rulers or the local elitist group. So they failed to build a local political network. So the point here is that the Cambridge School of Historiography will say that the English East India Company was more successful in integrating itself with the Indian power structures, and Dutch were not that much successful in integrating themselves in that power structure, and this is one reason for the failure of Dutch in India. Okay, so yes, Dutch failure was economic. And why there were serious limitations? Because Dutch failed to deeply engage with the local political networks. This is the idea. Then lastly, there is one more school that is known as global perspective. Okay, global perspective. So for writing conclusive part of your answers, this global perspective, okay, is very much important. So what this global perspective say? So the global perspective will say that VOC is unique because it is the first JVC multinational corporation in the world. It is having a more disciplined corporate structure and culture. That is the most important thing. And when we talk about the core Indonesian Empire, core Dutch Empire. So Indonesia was in the focus or priority of this core Dutch Empire, and India was like on the periphery. It means that Dutch were not much interested in India. They were more interested in Indonesia or the Spice Islands. What was the need for India then? Okay, so the need for India was there to develop control over the important trade networks, to counter Portuguese so that their monopoly could be broken, and the need for the Coromandel coast textile supply, the need for the saltpeter supply, and that's why, okay, they want to integrate India in this system, but the main focus is Indonesia, it is not India. Okay, so this is the point. So what we can say that yes, Dutch presence in India also indicates a kind of corporate commercial imperialism that is also marked by maritime monopoly, but the attempt to establish political control was very much limited, and in this sense it was different from the British. So this is the overall idea. I hope that you have got my point, and now you have developed a basic understanding of historiographical sense for the Dutch presence in India. So for conclusive part, what you will say that yes, the Dutch presence in India is a part of the broader structural framework of advent of Europeans in India. This is the point. It should be seen as a part or episode of the advent of Europeans in India. Okay. And the Dutch presence in India could be seen as, okay, corporate commercial presence. Yes, they also tried to establish their monopoly, but their main focus was commercial. It was not territorial. This is the most important point. So I hope that this much is sufficient. Okay, we can further elaborate this discussion, but I think that this much is sufficient. Okay, because still we are reading in very much details. And one more thing, one last and the most important thing, that if you are watching this video and if you have already completed classes in some coaching institutions, so just identify the weak areas or the portions. Look at the syllabus of history optional, and you will find that many chapters had already been skipped in your classes in 90% of the cases. So you will do what? You will identify some weak portions in your history optional and you will try to fill that gap. It means identify your weak portions, okay, and then come to my YouTube channel, find the topic and read that particular topic in detail if you have not that much time, and the videos will be updated continuously. So till mains examination this year 2026, all optional syllabus in English medium will be completed here. Okay, so watch these videos. These videos will be very much useful for you. I hope that you might get some benefits out of these efforts. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next class. Thanks to all of you.